Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Mr. Condon. I'm your kiddo's seventh grade science teacher here at Skyridge. When we started doing this remote learning last spring, March 13th to be exact, we as in teachers had a steep learning curve on how to teach remotely like this. And one of the very first things that I ran across is when recording lessons for students or a video for students, just to be yourself and just put it out there. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake, and just let it roll with that and just talk like you're talking face to face. So I'm pretending that you're in my classroom right now. It's parent night 2020-21, even though you're not, but I'm pretending like you are. And so yeah, I'm a little nervous. We always are when we talk to our parents, but welcome to our science class. We were asked to talk a little bit about how we got here. So I got kind of an interesting story how I got out here in Camas. So I grew up in Vancouver, Washington. I went to middle school in Vancouver, Washington, an old school called McLaughlin Middle School. And I went to college at Clark, and then for a couple of years, and then I went over to Warner Pacific to play soccer for Warner and got my degree. And I decided towards the very, very end of that, I wanted to be a teacher. And so I finished up my license and I got a sub job. So I started subbing my very first year as a teacher and realized this is nice. This is fun being around these little seventh grade kids. So then I did a lot of my subbing I did was at McLaughlin Middle School. So I got to know a lot of the teachers really, really well. They would always call me because I would always say yes. And so there it goes. So my passion was to teach, but I really wanted to teach at my old middle school where I walk the halls and so forth. And so the first year after my subbing, it didn't happen. They didn't have any job openings. But this little town out east, Camas, had a job opening late in August for science at an old school called JDZ Middle School, teaching seventh grade science. So I applied, and reluctantly I applied. And I always joke they hired me with about 10 minutes ago before first period rang for school to start that year, so late in the summer. But I got it, and I was anxious to get started. I got started. I thought, okay, I'll just do 1 year here, get year experience, go back to Mac High. So I taught at JDZ. I taught middle school science, 7th grade and 8th grade science, and a year went on, and I also coached the track program then. I helped work with the track program. I was hired for that also. So the first year goes by and everything's done in summer vacation. So I'm in my garage that summer. I get a phone call from a McLaughlin Middle School assistant principal. And he says, Mr. Connor, we have a job opening here. It's a health science job. We would love for you to come and work for us. We want to hire you. Come and talk to me. And on the phone in my garage in that moment, I turned him down and said, I'm happy where I'm at. That was 33 years ago. And so I've been a 7th grade science teacher in Camas now for 33 years. In fact, this room we're in right now, I'm the only, here at Skyridge, this is the only room that's only had one teacher in it. And I'm really proud of that. So when the kids come in here eventually, I want them to sense the pride I have in what I do and how I teach what I teach. I'm going to pause here for a second. I'm going to kick up a video to show you kind of what I do and how I'm presenting the work to your children as we go throughout this year. And that was kind of the hard part. I'm a hands-on science guy and demonstrations and things you light on fire and this kind of stuff. But it's so difficult to do that in the environment we're in. So I had to come up with something. And this I will tell you. I will never be the same teacher I was before March 13th of last year. I'm a different teacher. I think better teacher for what I've learned and how to present learnings to students. So what I do, I'm going to explain to you what I actually do to present to students their learning platform, I like to call it. But I'm going to stop this and I'm going to add that to it. So again, I'm honored to be able to work with your kids this year. The only sad part is I didn't get to see them in my classroom on day one, but we'll be back and soon. One of the most difficult parts of coming up with remote teaching, is how do we get the learning opportunities and the class activities across to the students, not being in the classroom. It's rather difficult. So last spring, I experimented with some ways to do this, and I took some online classes this summer and came up with what I think right now is the most efficient way to do this with the least amount of questions to kids to muddle the water, because the communication is very difficult now, not being right here in the classroom. So I call it my virtual science classroom. I put my lessons in here for the students. A lot of it is student directed. That they have to kind of go through and figure out what's kind of going on. But they are asked to go in and select a certain number of slides on a Monday, copy them, and put them into their virtual science notebook. I'm going to show you an example of that when I get to it. For instance, right here, this slide is always the same whenever we have a new set of slides come in. The learning opportunities for the week of October 5th through the 9th, slides 42 to 55. So they would copy those, bring them into their virtual science notebook, and then they have the week to do it. They always do on Friday by 4 o'clock. And then during the Zoom classes is when I support them, help them answer questions, help them organize if they need to as best we can, and they can just work through it themselves. So that's how I present the lessons to the students. If you have any questions, please ask. I can always share this document with you and you can check it out and to help your child maneuver through this. Thank you, parents, for watching my video. I do need to emphasize that my number one priority and concern is to keep kids engaged in science, in school, in Skyridge. If there's anything I need to do to help that, please reach out to me and we'll figure out some way to keep the learning going and keep all the students engaged until we come back as a hybrid. So stay safe, and if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you very much.